Hey guys, what's going on? I wanted to make this video for you because a lot of you say that you are jealous of my life, and the thing I want to tell you is you shouldn't be jealous, is that you should make this your life too.
While the world is finally waking up to racism and its societal issues, voices rise up and get louder, denouncing these behaviors that should not be acceptable during this time. And with social media, it's possible to raise your voice to combat issues that are affecting people of color, the LGBTQ+ community, and gender inequality. However, not every voice is an ally, and not everyone has the best intention. My name is António, welcome to my little corner on the internet, and today I want to talk about BARRETT PALL and the art form of weaponizing minorities for self-gain. So, for those of you who don't know, BARRETT PALL is a former model turned life coach and social media activist. He became famous for videos talking about the big problems inside the modeling industry, and one video on his YouTube is one of his most viewed videos that he did with Pietro Bozelli, called at the time the world's hottest math teacher. But if you take a look at his YouTube channel, it is very life coach storytelling time with a sprinkle of clickbait and a sprinkle of information gathered on Google that everyone has access to. And nowadays is a huge voice fighting racism. However, his activism is performative. Now, the beginning for his Instagram is very vanilla, is very photos of him traveling, selfies, an occasional life coach post with a plain text. However, it wasn't until his first full Black Lives Matter post that he started to get some reach. So he started to post a lot about BLM, which in theory is a very good thing. Now, I used to follow BARRETT PALL, but eventually I started to see some red flags, and this is what I'm going to talk about right now. Now, the first red flag that I noticed is that BARRETT PALL has a huge problem taking into account his own privilege. It seems to be very selective when he feels privilege or he doesn't. If you see him responding to criticism, he instantly turns it into hate, and he makes it to his followers that he's being hated upon in order to be able to play the victim card. However, this couldn't be further from the truth. If you take a look at BARRETT PALL's Twitter, you will see that there is very little support to what he's saying. There are a lot of people, not only POCs, but people from all over the Twitter sphere, that condemn the way he spreads his message and wants him to stop self-centering himself in the issues that he talks about. BARRETT PALL started to gain a lot of traction at the same time as the Puerto Vallarta incident, the one with the boat that sank. He basically was doing the same thing that Gays Over COVID was doing. Actually, Gays Over COVID shouted him out a few times, and that's why he got a lot of traction during this time. He was blasting the people that went to Mexico to party on his Instagram for his 240k followers at the time, and he became very successful because of that. So after the fad of exposing the people that were doing parties, because there's not a lot of that anymore. It seemed like kind of trendy thing to do, and now it's kind of over. BARRETT PALL had to move into something else, and basically he started to talk about white gay influencers and gay influencers that were not talking about BLM. Now, to be completely fair, BARRETT PALL didn't start it yesterday posting about BLM. His first post about the Black Lives Matter movement was at May last year in 2020. However, he has a very narrowed vision. It's either his way or no way. And if you don't see it his way, you are wrong. I started to follow BARRETT around this time when Gays Over COVID was very popular. That's how I found him. And I kept on following him because I wanted to be educated. I wanted to learn more about racial disparities and racial issues, and that's why I kept coming back to his page to be educated. However, I quickly saw through his facade after one incident that I had with him, and I was able to understand what his ultimate goal was: virtual ego and money. If you are not familiar to BARRETT PALL or how he responds to the criticism that he gets, BARRETT has a pattern of behavior. He screenshots the conversation or the comment that someone sends him. He normally crops it out of context and he blasts them in on his stories. Basically either deplatforming that person or sending an enormous amount of hate to that person. And he started to go for smaller accounts, since when he tried to do this to big ones, he got bitten in the ass. My incident with him, I can't pinpoint a specific post. I'm blocked. I think you can figure that out. But I remember the specific comment that he made. And he basically said that in Europe, we Europeans were very repressed emotionally. And I saw this comment and I felt some type of way, because I see us Europeans as very warm, very welcoming, especially in the South. And I decided to reply to his comment, and I said that it wasn't true, that we were very warming through others. I don't know what came over him, but he basically wrote something along the lines of, "You are wrong. You are wrong. I've been in Europe and you are wrong." And I wasn't going to let that slide. Now, I'm a very confrontational person and I could simply stop replying, but it didn't felt right, that type of misinformation being displayed to 240,000 subscribers, followers in this case. So I basically respond something along the lines of, if you want to talk about the differences between Europe and America, you can start talking about the fact that Europe has way less racially charged crimes. There is way less discrimination to LGBTQIA plus folks. So I don't think it's fair for you to say that we are very repressed in our emotions. And his basic response, because he couldn't have like a sassy comeback, because I remember that he said something like, and this is a pattern that you will see with his replies, he said something along the lines of, "Oh, you're not doing the work." But this time he couldn't give me a sassy reply. So he basically said, "I don't have to hear you because you are white." I was just profiled. I understand that I might come across as white to a lot of people, 99% of the people, I do believe. However, I'm not fully white. I am part white and I'm part gypsy. I'm gypsy from the side of my mother, and I am white from the side of my father. Which basically means that Barrett looked at my profile picture, saw, oh, you look white, so you're white. And when I told him that I wasn't white, I was part gypsy, he basically told me that I was being insensitive, that I was being racist for calling myself gypsy. Basically, it stripped away my my gypsiness, which is very problematic coming from an influencer that wants to be a social activist and wants to preach the word of understanding and compassion. Basically, the situation that we have here is a white man telling a POC that you don't have an opinion because I look at you and I see you as white. However, this wasn't the first and last time that Barrett would act like this towards other POCs. After the fad of blasting people on their stories because they went to a party while in the middle of the pandemic, Barrett started to blast people on his stories for not posting about BLM. Almost everyone that Barrett blasted online was in fact white. But because of his blindness and his performativeness, he blasted a couple of people of color without knowing. Because in its own mind, if you look white, you are white. Now, one of the examples was Humor Time. Humor Time is an account that belongs to a couple, and one of them is white, the other one is Latino. He started to blast their account, and eventually they came out saying, we don't want to talk about this, we are Latino, and please leave us alone. It was basically what they told him. However, Barrett was not satisfied, and when he discovered that the other partner in this couple was white, he started to blasting them because he was white, and you have to post on your grid, and you have to posting on your stories is not enough, and he basically made it so they had to make their account private. They had to leave it private for a long time. When this happened, he received a lot of criticism for coming for a Latino and demanding a Latino to post about BLM. Once again, a white man demanding a Latino to post about BLM. And Barrett Paul will tell you that he's just making you aware that they're not posting, but if you are able to find archives of the way he blasts them online, he is demanding. He's not asking, he's not pleading, he is demanding. He's using his own power of influence into these accounts and submitting them into posting what he wants. And this is not the way to be an activist, because you are antagonizing a whole movement, and people that want to be educated will think that the way that you do it is the way to be an activist, and that is not correct. Now, basically, after getting tired of coming for Humor Time, Barrett decided to focus his hate on another Latino member. This person was John Sibley. Sibley is Latino and he was an actor on Pose. He's also an LGBTQIA+ advocate, and fights for the rights of Latino people. However, Barrett decided to come for him for his lack of posts about BLM on his IG grid. And Sibley decided to respond and basically said that he didn't want to talk with him because he didn't agree with the way he did stuff. He blasted Sibley on his stories numerous times until Sibley was being defended by his friends, and basically what Barrett did was label them as porn stars. These were sex workers, and basically Barrett downgraded them as porn stars and told them to go back to make videos on OnlyFans, which is very problematic in this day and age. Barrett didn't stop here. He even came after a non-binary influencer for posting a slide explaining that not everyone was educated on the same level, and coming for people for not being as woke as Barrett is problematic because it creates an antagonistic behavior towards them. And with this slide, he put himself on the picture. Barrett came out for him, but later he did exactly the same. So the hypocrisy here is very real. What I find it interesting is that Barrett claims to be learning from POCs and that he wants to learn more and get more educated. However, he did a live with a black influencer called Philip Avelin, and in this live I remember specifically him saying the way Barrett was putting people on blast was not the right way. Exactly because of this. You would create an antagonistic behavior. This lasted like a week. Barrett didn't blast anyone again, but after a week he came back to his shenanigans. Barrett claims that every white gay influencer are privileged, and he is not wrong there in a way. But we cannot forget that we, as members of the LGBTQIA+ community, live very different lives from each other. A lot of us don't have a support system. A lot of us don't have the courage or the power to speak up. And the way he makes it to his followers is like people don't speak out because they don't want to. And I believe that this happens. I'm not saying that he's completely wrong. However, the way he puts out the message is wrong. Just because Barrett had or have a very privileged life until now, it doesn't mean that every white LGBTQIA+ person is privileged the same way that he is. Now, it is true that white queer folks have it way easier, but way easier than POCs, trans folks. However, it wasn't too long ago that he covered a story about Jason Fox. Jason Fox was a 19-year-old that was murdered in Newport, Washington by 3 or 4 people, if I'm not mistaken. He was baited. And Barrett claimed that the story touched him very much. I asked Barrett this: did you know what kind of life Jason Fox had before he was killed? You don't know if the people that you are ostracizing, the people that you are blessing on your comments, the people that you are deleting comments from, had or are going through hardships that make them unable to speak out or to be more active. If Barrett wanted to be a real activist, he wouldn't be blasting people online. He would be trying to educate them. Every time you would get a hate comment or someone that disagreed with him, he would try to educate them and explain them why their view was wrong instead of blasting them. Barrett Paul, as a white person, is not the correct person to blast people online. That is a right that POCs have. They are the ones that suffer from racism. So to have a white person do their rightful work is not the best way to go about it. If Barrett wants to be an activist, if he wants to be an ally, he should be there to support POCs, not act on their behalf. Now, don't be misguided. Barrett Paul is directly profiting from his activism, which in turn makes it not activism, but makes it a business. Barrett Paul has a tendency to share a lot of books. Apparently he reads books in 24 hours in between his live streams, which is a very good gift to have. However, one book that it was constantly plugging was White Fragility and Me, written by Robin, a white author. A lot of people were in his comments explaining that that book was not the best book to recommend because it was written by a white author, and because of this it was taking away from the black folks that were trying to raise their voices. It took Barrett 2 weeks to acknowledge that this book wasn't the best, and ever since, every new week there's a new book. And although I commend him for him, I kind of doubt that he reads them. I believe that he takes like key points that he finds and he blasts them. Because Barrett is basically a Google. Nothing that Barrett says it's new. Everything is something that you can find on Google. It's not this huge wisdom of expertise that you will get by following him. Another thing that is very interesting is that Barrett is constantly calling these white influencers out for making money out of their subscribers or followers. But I have one question. I would love to know how much Barrett is making from his affiliate link with Amazon from the books he recommends, but not just for a month. Since he started to talk about the BLM movement, let's say starting on May, how much money did you make? He is also yet to provide receipts on how much he donated to the Trevor Project through his bracelets that he sells on his website. He is yet to provide receipts from the money that he gathers from his live streams to the institutions that he claims to donate the money to. And he is yet to show how much money he started to make with his Patreon and how many new Patreons he got since he started to talk about the BLM movement. One other question that I have for Barrett is, since Barrett is so fixated on cleaning people's Explorer page, that's a whole nother topic. I would love to see yours. I would love to see your Explorer page, because you talk a lot about other people's Explorer page. If they are very wide, they just need to press I'm not interested. I want to see your Explorer page. I really do. I would love to hear about the fact that you made an ad for a perfume company that tests on animals. I would love to know what kind of agreement did you have with Mimi when they gave you a card for you to publicize on your Instagram. You are getting money from your subscribers, from your followers. You made your profile a business. Is profiting off of his business, off of his profile, and disguising it as activism. Now, we have talked a lot about his Instagram. However, his Twitter tells a different story. Every time he tweets, there's an outpour of criticism to what he says. A lot of people screen grab his TikToks because they are very problematic. And I want you to understand that there's a different picture being shown on Twitter. Because on Twitter, even though he can block people, and he blocks a lot, he cannot block people from talking about him. And every time people write his name on a tweet, it appears every time you search for him. And that's why he doesn't post on Twitter as much as he does on Instagram. Paul has very problematic tweets. He had a tweet describing an Asian woman, saying that she was spitting like a 14-year-old. He had a very transphobic tweet, and he didn't acknowledge any of it until he was forced to. I remember the live where this happened. He blatantly said that there were no racist tweets, that those were taken out of context, that because he lived on Chinatown, those tweets weren't racist. So basically it was people trying to get a one-up on him.
I also want to clarify really quickly, there's no racist tweets. There's a tweet that I talked about an Asian woman in Chinatown spitting like a 14-year-old boy. I lived in Chinatown, and there's like, I understand how the language could be manipulated, but like, there was nothing racist in there. And I mean, I left it up because I was like, it's there. I'm not going to try and delete it and act like that text isn't, or that tweet's not there. But like, it's a tweet that's there. There's no, I mean, you can like manipulate things to become racist, but.
However, just a few days prior, he was on live with another person, and once again, he was forced to talk about his racist tweets, and he simply said that he was in a bad place. He should have done better. He shouldn't have posted them, and they were disgraceful. So what is it? Are those tweets racist or not? And when you say on a live that you didn't delete them, why can't we find them? And after being called out, what Mr. BARRETT PALL did was restrict his comments. Not everyone can comment. I remember when BARRETT PALL responded to people on his comments saying, I will not take your opinion because your IG is private. Why can't you have your comments open? Why did you restrict your comments? Because people are speaking a lot of truth in your IG. And the truth that is being put forward on Twitter You are afraid that it gets to your main page. That is your biggest problem. Now, we're almost at the end, but I still wanted to talk about something that happened pretty recently. I think about yesterday or 2 days ago. BARRETT put out a TikTok talking about health insurance.
I spend almost $400 a month on health insurance, and my dermatologist prescribed me face cream that is $140 with insurance. When I asked him about anti-aging stuff, he dismissed me and said men can have wrinkles. He said this in front of a woman nurse. Not to mention, when I picked up my prescription, it was wrong. And this was the second dermatologist I went to because the first one also dismissed me. This is the healthcare system in America.
He wants to be relatable so much that he puts something like this on his TikTok. The interesting thing is that he puts a lot of his TikToks on his Instagram, but when he made this one, he got so many backlash that it is not on his Instagram. Because let's face it, don't you forget, his Instagram is his business and he doesn't want to lose his moneymaker. He doesn't. Losing followers means he will make less money and he doesn't want that. So he doesn't want his followers to see it. In a time where people are dying from either COVID, don't have money, in a time where people are struggling to get a job, it's very death tone to complain about not being able to get a wrinkle face cream. It's very, very, very problematic. And this is just to show that BARRETT is not only performative, he wants to be relatable in order to get your money. So basically, in conclusion, people like BARRETT PALL are benefiting directly from the hurt of others. They are inserting themselves in other people's shoes. They are pretending to suffer the same that POCs suffer, which is not the case. They are deciding who is white passing and who's not, and passing judgment on who's white passing, which is very wrong. And these kind of people are not allies. They are leeches. They suck as much as they can until they have nothing less to suck, and then they move on to another topic. People like BARRETT PALL shouldn't be able to thrive in platforms like Instagram, Twitter, on TikTok. They are misguiding the message behind Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter is about equality. It's about security. It's about not feeling fear for their lives. It is not about misguiding the message. It's not about blasting people online for not posting about BLM. If you want to get educated, there are a lot of creators that will educate you, that are more than willing to do that. Another thing is that you shouldn't be forcing a POC to explain what racism is or educate you. POCs are tired. POCs have suffered long enough. So if they don't have the will or the strength to teach you and educate you, move along. Look for another influencer that is. There are a lot. There are many. And I'm going to post some of them on the description. Not everyone is solely focused on educating. They do other stuff, but they often talk about racism. And that's it. This was the video for today. It's long, but I think it was important to talk about this because it's time to stop with the performativeness, to stop with the fake deepness, to stop with making the suffering of other people your moneymaker. Hey, editing me here. What I'm trying to say with this conclusion is that there are a lot of ways for you to support BLM and POCs in general outside of the virtual world. Making a post on Instagram is not the only way for you to support them. And in fact, I do believe that the real change happens in real life by listening to your POC friends, supporting POC businesses, buying from them, going to protests. There are a lot of ways for you to support them. And antagonizing people because they don't have a BLM post is not the right way to do it, because you don't know what kind of work they are doing in real life. So yeah, comment, subscribe, like this video, and I'll see you soon.
In psychology, the definition of projection is unconsciously taking unwanted emotions and traits and attributing them to someone else.